Hello, world, and welcome to another episode of the Millennial Outliers podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Justin Deal, with my right-hand man, Tyler Arjun. What's up, big dog?
What's going on, brother? We're back.
We are back, and we have a very special guest for you, a good friend of mine, bit of a mentor, fun ball-busting friend as well, and a very successful young man. We have Anthony Mongeluzo with us. What's up, Ant?
I'll take the ball busting, but I'll take young man.
Yeah, you like that, right?
I just signed up for some medical records, and I saw it said 43 in 6 months. I'm like, that's not me.
Is that what you are? You're 43?
43 and change.
All right. So a couple years on me. But Anthony is a serial entrepreneur, most notably PCS Technologies. He is Mr. Fox News for Tech Tips, if you watch that at all. And he's just a great entrepreneur, a wealth of knowledge. So we're going to learn a little bit more about how he scaled his business over, I believe, 21 years. Is that how long you've been?
It'll be 24.
24.
In December, halfway there.
And that's amazing to hear you've been in business that long. Congrats on that. But let's, as I was saying, we typically like to kick it off. Tyler and I always talk about it. A lot of people think successful people had no problems. Everything was handed to them. And what we've come to the realization is we all have the same problems. Successful people just come up with better solutions. So tell me a little bit about your childhood, where you're from, relationship with your parents, and maybe some lessons you took from them.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in business. My dad owned a bar. It was a family business. I think the bar opened in like 57.
Wow.
So my grandparents actually started it. And so literally the bar was around the corner from my grade school. So it was kind of cool because I would go to the bar and after school and, I would sell balloons and do sort of crazy things. I remember actually going on my first date. I was probably like 13 years old. And it's like, hey, you want to go to the Homestead? I was my dad's, that's the name of the bar. Okay. And so just a lot of good family memories there. So, I think I grew up a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And, I got to see family struggle, so to speak, because when the bar wasn't doing so hot, the family might have turned on each other for a little bit. My dad ended up getting out of town. He started a bar. By the way, getting out of town in Philly means you start another bar like 15 blocks away. That's how it rolls in Philly. And literally, then because each neighborhood was just really a series of blocks. And an interesting fact, within a 12-block radius, when my dad started a second bar, there was 57 bars in Philly. 57. Wow. And by the time when he got out, there was 9.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy. So so I had a really, I won't say tough upbringing, but Philly was tough, right? Nothing like it is now. But Southwest Philadelphia, you had to have the eyes behind your head sometimes. So I think that's one of the things that really helped me in my life. Like I wouldn't change it because look, you see the kids in Medford, and I'm not making fun of anyone, but they're growing up a little different, right? Mm-hmm. And just walking to the park, you could get jumped. So you always had to have the sense. And I think one thing that helped me with business and sales and just life, I got my education, I got my formal school smarts and all that. Mm-hmm. But seeing what I saw at the bar, you get a lot of street smarts growing up in Philly, just being in an environment, and you have to just always be aware. And you get a sixth sense on people.
Well, you're a very savvy guy. We've had many conversations where it always hurts me when you're absolutely correct, but you'll give me advice. You'll be like, just with what you're building and what you're doing, like that's not a good move for you. You don't have the bandwidth for it. And I always begrudgingly still do what I want to do. And then I come back to you 3 months later and I'm like, I stopped doing that because you're absolutely right.
We're trying to buy you time. That's all. It's your most valuable resource. That's all you have.
Absolutely. Yeah. So have you, grown the technology company? We've talked about this a little bit, but like, did you always know? Were you like fascinated by technology since you were young? Like, how'd you even go that route?
So a lot of people probably won't understand this, but we'll try. So back in the day, there's Nintendo and Super Nintendo, NES and Atari. And I was a gamer like a lot of kids, my age at the time, right? And but the real games were on the PC, right? Now go back to 1995, right? There's no Google. You have an instruction manual, right? There's no updates. There's no real functional internet. You have AOL, but the World Wide Web kind of was up, but not really cooking in the way that we know it. Mm-hmm. So in order to play the best games, you would have to configure your PC with a boot disk. And a boot disk was basically a set of instructions on a floppy disk that you basically had to tell the computer, I want you to put these resources here. Maybe you have to lower the quality of the sound because the game won't play. So you almost had to learn to be a mini programmer. And the prize was, if you do it right and you could figure it out, you get to play the game. Huh. So fast forward, my parents thought I was crazy. I actually started a video game business where I bought and sold video games through the flea market scene. So I was probably 13.
Start GameStop.
Yeah, well, we're going to get there.
I
so I ended up coming really successful, especially for my age. And, like the stock market, buy low, sell high, buy a game for $12 or trade you something, and I'd sell it for $20. But I got known because I was hitting every local church flea market. So then my parents let me use the room in the basement where we'd have people come into the house buying and selling games. I mean, I had hundreds of Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, like you name it. I had everything. And then it got a little too big. So I actually sold my business. My dad had assigned a contract to Funkoland. So that Funkoland doesn't exist anymore, but Funkoland was functionally EB Games.
Yep.
So then I took that money. I was 15 then at the time, and I parlayed it, and I bought 386 DX50s or DX33s, maybe SX. I don't know. It's old technology. And a 486 DX4 100. I mean, that was...
What is that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it a computer?
It was a computer that wouldn't run the Windows logo, but back then it was pretty high powered. And I created a bulletin board system, which was basically a service like AOL, but local. So you could call into my system, you could download games, you could interact with people, you could connect in from the internet. And I got to a good couple hundred people paying me around 20, 25 bucks a month. And again, 95. Well, I also learned my first business lesson then. My parents moved from Philly. Imagine this, a shooting at the store that I worked at. And I lost that entire business and that revenue stream because remember, back then, if you wanted to call a Jersey number, you're paying 20 cents a minute.
Right.
You know, and if you had to download one floppy disk, and for the audience at home, that's 1.44 meg, it was about 7 to 11 minutes.
Wow.
For not much data. So yeah, I've always been involved in technology. I've always really, in some way, shape, or form, touched a business pretty much my entire life since I was 13.
Man, that's actually really impressive. They were making
Yeah,
that
it's
kind
crazy.
of money doing all that at 13. We've had two like back-to-back savants in the technology space just doing crazy stuff.
And I'll give you something funny. I loved wrestling. Went to WrestleMania, and my SysOp name, that was your bulletin board system operator name, was HB Kid. Because I love Shawn
the
Michaels.
Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah. So if you Google
Sweet Chin Music, baby.
Sweet Chin Music, if you Google HB Kid, the Devil's Advocate 215, there is still remnants of my board online.
That is fantastic.
Write that down, audience, and look them up.
Seriously.
So it's pretty cool. And then when you look it up, it'll be it's called ANSI graphics. It's all old school.
I
like
look so
characters.
bad.
It's so old.
Yeah. That's
So now, did you
crazy.
did you go to college for technology, or how'd that work for
Well, I went on college for this.
you? Yeah.
I went to Rowan as a radio TV film major.
Oh, wow.
And a professor there, Jay Chaskis, really convinced me to get in the business. He's like, you're like the #1 computer guy on campus. And he actually told me, I'll never forget this. He said to me, he goes, Mongeluzo, don't be a dipshit. He goes, there's going to be all this radio and all these channels and all these TV things. And what's going to happen is when there's 1,000 TV channels coming in the future, you're going to have to be so special. It's going to be athlete level. He's like, you're going to be making $15 an hour if you're lucky working on some stupid network. He's like, go.
And what year was this?
This was, I switched majors in 99.
That guy knew the
Yeah,
streaming
he
was
really
coming.
did.
Well, and I'll give you a quick funny story with him. Always gets a little emotional talking about. So he was a great mentor to me, right? He was a great guy. He was a professor. He'd come into class. He'd drop some F-bombs. He would just say it as it is.
He's a cool teacher.
He was a cool teacher.
Yeah.
But he was hard on you too. Like
Yeah.
you had to be accountable. You earned your grade. Let's just put it that way.
Yep.
Well, one day, or not that day, I shouldn't say, that I switched the majors, and I looked at him like dead in the eye. I said, well, what about my TV career? And he's like, Mongeluzo, if you're effing good enough, you'll find a way to be on TV. Now go over to Bunce. That was the college.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I think it was like 2009, 2010, I got the first Young Distinguished Alumni Award at Rowan. Always cool to be the first, right? Especially the major university. Well, Jay was pretty sick. They call him the Miracle Man. He was in a coma for a while. He had a bloody nose. They packed it, and he got some bacterial infection.
Wow.
Don't you know, in his wheelchair, when I spoke at convocation, he comes wheeling in, and he said to me, he goes, I guess you were effing good enough. You got on TV.
I love that.
So,
That's awesome.
and we still stay in touch. So he's a great guy, and you need people like that in your life because who knows where I'd be.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
Now, so you started the company at 21. So
20.
it was 20. So
I was in classes.
I was gonna say you weren't even out of college.
Oh no, I was a junior.
So how did you identify that that was a need, and what was step one at 20 while balancing a college schedule and starting a business?
And that was at that. By the way, since I switched majors, right? Talk about that. I was working like 25, 30 hours a week at Acme, the supermarket.
Okay.
And I might have had to take 50 credits my senior year. I attended Rowan,
God.
Camden County, and Burlington County all at the same time because I wanted to graduate with honors. And even though my GPA would have covered it, you had to have the credits. So it was hell. It was tough to balance the time. And again, fortune, right? I never thought of starting an IT company. My neighbor, my mom's neighbor, my dad's neighbor, they were retired. The husband is Don was a Coca-Cola executive. Pat, his wife, was well known in Medford, a realtor. Local computer company who's out of business, so that's the only reason I'll say their name, Debug It. They messed up. So I went out there, fixed everything for like 15 minutes, and she's like, this company charged me $400. And like, you need to get some cards. We're going to put this at the real estate office, and we're going to refer you. They're like, so what's your hourly rate? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, well, what do you make at the supermarket? It's like top of the pay scale.
$6
I'm
or
at
something.
10.75 an hour.
Which actually is pretty good back then.
Well, yeah, but also I had 4.5 years clocked in.
Yeah.
So then what happened was, so Don looks at me and goes, $40 an hour sounds pretty good, doesn't it? I'm like, that's the rate then. Let's go with it. So she wrote a handwritten note, copied it, and put it in all the realtor boxes at Medford, Prudential, Fox, and Roach at the time. And the realtors just started calling me. And then they referred me to title companies and mortgage companies. And the thing just snowballed to the point where I accepted a job with the government to work at the GSA. It was a GS7. And in August, I'm like, I made more money than I'm going to make at my job at the government. You know, I was making a cool $32,500. But as with government work, there was a lot of perks, and you have to really work that hard. I hated
Holidays and stuff.
I hated it. I did not last very long there, and I didn't even tell my parents for a while. I got a contract with a plastic company doing IT, making twice the amount I was making for a year, working 3 days a week, and PCS was born.
I love that. So you're obviously, I assume, the sole entrepreneur to start. Who was your first hire? And are they still with you?
No, I have a lot. So I joke, like our top 5-6 people, we've worked together now collectively for probably like 120 years, maybe even a little longer. I mean, we have a lot of people that, like, our top 5 or 6. My first hire, it's a crazy one. And think of Apollo Creed, right? Mm-hmm. So I put my time in at the government, and it was my last day. Well, all these people come to my desk and they start packing my stuff up. I'm handing everything in. Like, this is that's the process. I get it. Yeah. And this guy, Gary, was the one packing my stuff up, right? So I'm like, so he was a contractor because the government didn't have internal. I'm like, you're going to work for me one day, man. You're going to work. And I'm talking all this.
Jerry Maguire moment.
And as the elevator's closing, my mouth's still running. Like, everyone knew it was in good fun. Yeah. I'm like, you're coming with me. So don't you know, I don't know this guy from anyone. I go to a local recruiter because I needed to hire my first person. I didn't know a lick about hiring, and thank God I guess I hired this guy because part of the job was you worked out of my parents' house because I didn't have an office, which my parents did not like that too much. Guy comes in for an interview. It's the guy that I yelled at saying he's going to work for me.
Gary.
Yes, and he honestly, he was a nice guy, but he wasn't really that hard of a worker. He made it with us for like 3 months, 4 months, and then we just went on from there.
Love it. So with being in business for 24 years, those first 3 years, they always say is like, the most important in the entrepreneurial journey. What were some of the big hurdles that you hit, and like, how did you work through that being as young as you were with only so many resources?
Well, that was basically it. Resources, right? How many times could you imagine when you're the IT person for a business? I remember my friend Bob Harriet saving me. I was at a Harriet's board meeting, and they were like, well, Bob, what if this kid gets hit by a bus? Bob goes, there's no buses in Medford. Everyone laughed, and the conversation just went. It was good. So, I had to worry about people. Look, I started, when I told you that August where I made more money than I was going to make at the government, I was walking in the Fox and Roach, and I heard one of the guys say, who's this kid coming up here? And I was like, I actually went by the PC Pro. And the guy's like, oh, that's the PC Pro. And the other guy's like, he looks like he's 12. That was pretty disheartening. Yeah. So I went home that day pissed, and my dad's like, what's wrong? I'm like, Dad, people think I'm a joke. My dad's like, what's the matter? They said I look young, I'm a babe. He's like, well, that's good. You'll like that when you're older. He goes, put on an effing tie. You'll look older. Yeah. I put on that tie, and business started booming. So I don't know if it was the tie or the timing or whatever, but until COVID, I didn't take that tie off. Now we get laughed at if we wear ties, unfortunately.
As I say, but you're always very well dressed.
Yeah, you're always in suits and stuff. Yeah.
So that your dad kind of instilled that in you at that point.
Yeah, and then a lot of times people, when we hired them, thought that like the company was almost hazing them. They're like, wait, you're an IT company and you make everyone wear a shirt and tie? I'm like, yeah, you could think of yourself as an IT company. I don't. I think of us as business consultants that happen to be really good at customer service and technology. So I always try, and customers would tell me, they're like, you know what? We always know there's a PCS guy here because they're the best dressed person in the building, which was a great compliment.
And you want to hear that. Yeah.
And guess what? That's branding too, right? It's not always a logo. It's how you answer the phone. It's how you present yourself.
100%. Yeah.
Now that you've built, how many? Do you have a few hundred employees?
Yeah,
now,
we're
right?
at 250 plus.
Love
Wow.
that. So what are you seeing now, 24 years into the business journey? What's changed in the challenges, obviously, with
Well,
that many
COVID.
people?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. I mean, and if you look at the ads on TV, for instance, take a look at Indeed, right? It's like, get the job you deserve. No, it's get the job that you earn.
Mm.
So I definitely see, and this isn't, when I say something, it's not every all, but I'm just talking in percentages. The older workforce seems to be more dedicated. They seem to want to come in more, where the younger workforce is more, they already want to spike the ball before they got in the end zone.
Mm.
And again, not everyone, but there's challenges with that. The other challenge that I see, and I'm sure this is across multiple industries, but IT in particular, our technicians learn by being in person and working with more senior technicians. Collaboration. And what I think happens is with this, we let everyone take 2 days a week to work from home. You lose that. And what I find is the people that are at the office seem to level up their skills more quickly.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, it drives me crazy. Like we pay overtime. Imagine that, right? A lot of places don't. If I work somewhere and there was overtime and there was real work, I would have taken every minute of it. Sometimes like, wait, you don't want the overtime? Like,
Yeah,
it's overtime. It's time and a half. And
Yeah.
we also allow folks, if they don't want to take the money, if they work an hour of overtime, they could take an hour and a half of PTO.
Mm.
So they still get that credit. We don't say,
Right.
hey, it's 1-to-1, or it's what's fair is fair.
Yeah.
love to hear that. Now, you also, I don't know the exact number. It's at least like 10 businesses, I think, that you're like a partner in.
Yeah.
So how have you identified where else you wanted to invest, time, money, all of that?
So the interesting thing is, I get credit for, hey, you're a visionary, or you saw this, or Ant, how'd you know to get into cybersecurity 12 years ago? And honestly, the answer's simple. For the type of business that we're in, we're typically the first call for technology. So I don't think you need to be that smart when you get call after call, like, hey, are you doing this or you're doing this?
Yep.
So once I started referring out a decent amount of business in a particular area where I thought I could add, expertise, help someone grow, then I got into that business.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been, quite a bit. Most recently, jumped in with Bill and Leon over at Liberty Fox, which for me, I have a software company, Pilot, which is awesome. Matt has been an incredible friend, and God, we've been together 20 years. And but he does Django programming, which is a very specific coding language that it could do anything, but certain times you need .NET or other things. So by having that, now that really completed my technology puzzle or my masterpiece, because I could pretty much pick up the phone and have a company that does something in that area.
Right.
So does everybody complement PCS that you've invested in? There's nothing really like outside that silo, so to speak?
I mean, I've a couple buildings with the Moorestown building I own, the Vineland building I own with a partner. And
That's
then obviously, both commercial. And then obviously Jersey Man magazine would probably be really one of the few things that kind of fall out of that technology wheelhouse.
Mhm.
But I just love the brand. I love what the Dunnocks were doing. And for me, that was Hair Club for Men, right? I was a customer for 5-6 years before I bought in.
Yeah.
I was Ken's first board member. And it just was such a different concept for networking that just wasn't here, right? We have our chambers and your YPOs and your BCAs, but Jersey Man, to me, just brought a fun element to it. And if you get people out, the right people in the right environment, they're going to do business. So
Yeah.
that's why I really supported that.
Absolutely. Now, for the younger entrepreneur that's watching this, I've seen you amass amazing success. Like you're honestly probably one of the most successful people that I know at your age. What kind of advice would you give to, especially that younger generation that you said doesn't seem to have the same drive that maybe we grew up with? How do they start? Like, what are some of the steps they can take to, build the life that they're looking for? Not that they deserve, but to earn it.
Yeah. So I'll say a couple things. I mean, one, you have to be in a labor of love, right? You better love what you're doing. If you're saying, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur to make money, not good. You don't want to do that, right? Because if you're not passionate, people will know. People could see if you're authentic or not. The second thing is, and they're not going to hear this, it sucks. It's a grind. You have to make a lot of sacrifices. You might lose relationships with friends. You might not have that significant other for a little while because they're going to feel like, hey, do you care about me more or the business? And the answer is, hey, I care about you, but if I truly care about you, I got to build this for a better life later.
Right.
So you got to grind it out. There was a quote I said, and I didn't even realize I said it. Someone chopped it up and put it as an audio clip. And they're like, hey, what was the difference between you and your friends and why they might not have achieved the same success, or they started a company and quit. I said, pretty simple. I said, most of my friends, they get up at like 7:30 every day. They went to work at 8. They got done at 4:30, and they went to the bar at 5. I said, me, I got up at 5:30. I worked till about 7 or 8 every day, and then I went to the bar. So that 2 or 3 hours a day consistently, 5 days a week, that's a lifetime. And I could tell you about a struggle. In 2008, when the whole mortgage market collapsed, right? 40% of my business was real estate, title, and mortgage. My biggest customer, Mid-Atlantic Capital, sent an email. Hey, sorry, we're closing. Bills aren't being paid. We appreciate everything. They owed me 6 figures, and they probably represented, $400,000 or $500,000 a year in business on a $1.8 million top line. It was then, and thankfully I was single, I created the Every Night Club. I went out every night, Saturday, Sunday, any event. I don't care what it was, because I just bought my house and I just bought my first building. And I just remember watching the fan, because I couldn't sleep at night, going around. And I think every time the fan went around, I probably said shit or some other 4-letter word, because it was a situation I couldn't control. But what I could control is how hard I could work and what I could do. We lost a third of our business. There was not one person laid off. And at the end of the year, we did 8% better in sales than the prior year.
Wow.
No, it was a lot. You couldn't do that every year.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I think you're a master of is efficiency with your time. And one of the things I love the most is your tech tank. So first, why don't you tell people what the tech tank is? And then second, how did you come to the decision that that was a worthy investment?
So I remember the exact moment, actually. But so the tech tank, I'm on version 3. It's a fully functional mobile office. So think about everything in your office that you could have, right? So when you go in there first, when you walk in, there's a restroom. We don't even have to stop on the road. So that saves, believe it or not, a lot of time depending on where you're at and where you're going. It's equipped with satellite internet. So I get 100 megs down pretty much anywhere I go. It combines all the cell phone networks. So Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. So a lot of times in areas where I can't get coverage, I do have it now. I have a full computer set up. I have refrigeration. I even have an espresso maker in there. So I could literally get everything done. And it's evolved. My first tech tank was a GMC Arcadia. I ripped out the middle seats. My second tech tank was the Ford Transit. Now it's the Mercedes Sprinter. And the exact moment when I decided I needed a tech tank was I rear-ended someone texting and driving because I was too busy and not paying attention. And I came to the realization that, in that moment, I'm not going to text and drive. 2 weeks, I'm going to forget about it and do it again.
Yeah.
So my basic philosophy with the tech tank was, if you're dead, you can't grow your business. So I knew that I would do something wrong at a certain point, because I'll see that important email or your top customer or whatever calling you. And now I don't have to worry about making stupid decisions when I'm driving.
That's what lane assist is for.
Yeah. There was no Tesla back then. There was no Tesla back then.
I'm like, oh.
But yeah. So I mean, that is the most productive thing I've done in my life. And I don't know why more people don't do it.
Hey, so you literally never waste, because you're going you go to New York, you're out PA all over, I'm sure down Delaware, Maryland. So you're never not accessible or able to do what you need to do.
And think about this, right?
Yeah.
People look at the tech tank. Some people look at it as a party bus. Some people look at it as a mobile office, which that's how I look at it. But what most people don't think, if you had to drive a billboard around Philly, what would that cost you? It's a moving billboard.
Yep.
And it's created so much media buzz over the years. I mean, I had a segment on Fox 29, hashtag Fox 29, hashtag Tech Tank, every weekend when they rebooted the weekend show. And we literally did the segments live out of my car. So there's so many other things. And I mean, think about it, right? From a strategic perspective, I don't need to tell people that I can help you work from home, or my company, like, we're working from the highway. Yeah. 2, you always remember someone who's a little different, right? Yep. When I wheel up in that thing, people that I met for 4 seconds in King of Prussia, let's say, where I'm not around often, like, yo, you're that guy with the tech tank. So there's value to that. What's the value? I don't know, but it's all part of the cake.
Yeah, well, it's building your brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just a nice experience. So there's nothing that excites me more. And you're like, hey, you want me to send the tech tank to pick you up for like whatever we're doing? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to be in the tech tank.
And that's the other thing too, right? You're creating experience for people. Like, think about this. We all work hard, and look, let's face it, 99% of the people are driving. Well, if I pick you up in the tech tank, we have a couple drinks, I get you home safe. The spouse isn't worried that you're going to be drinking and driving. And it's more laid back. Your shoulders drop a little bit because it's one less thing to worry about.
Now, we were talking about, obviously, branding. You had mentioned the media. So, as I had alluded to earlier, you're like Fox's go-to guy for IT. So how did you spawn that? How'd that come to fruition?
So again, like a lot of things, right? Dumb luck. I sent a newsletter out, and my PR guy, Tom from the Galileo, Tom Parrish, he forwarded it to Michelle Buckman, like cold, who was the consumer reporter over at Fox 29 News at that time. And it was about the Conficker virus that we were talking about before we went on the air. And I did the segment, and it was a tape segment the first time because obviously I'm untested talent, so to speak. And they came to me afterwards like, hey, have you ever done live TV? And I was like, well, I was a radio TV film major, and like one time in high school, one of the news stations came in and they picked me to talk about something. I said, no real experience. Like, you want to go on Good Day tomorrow? Like, let's do it.
Oh.
So I went on the Good Day, and they liked it, and it was perfect timing because Fox was actually looking for a tech contributor at the time. Their internal guy didn't want to do it, and there was someone at one of the local universities, I forget, it was Penn, Temple, that they thought would have been a good fit, but the university wouldn't let them. So here comes me coming in, and 15 years later, I'm still there. I just hit 15 years on Good Day on March 28th.
That's amazing, dude.
Yeah, I didn't know it's been that long.
15 years. I saw the picture, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I looked like Elvis with my sideburns. I don't know what I was thinking.
Now, so as you continue to grow, right, and the businesses are thriving and you're finding different opportunities, what like inspires or motivates you to keep going? Because like you, in most people's mind, I would just like, you made it, right? Like you did it. So what keeps you to continue to move forward and press as hard as you do? I feel like you make me feel like I don't move around as much as I do. And I feel like I'm everywhere. And I look and I'm like, he's literally everywhere.
I'm trying to be.
Yeah. And you have a family and all that too. So like you balance all that. But what keeps you motivated to just keep grinding?
Yeah. And one thing I will say before getting to that, the family is the most important, right? Like I thought when Shelly was pregnant with our first, I'm like, oh my, I'm going to have to work so much harder. You know, I want, obviously the kids have a better life. And she tells me all the time, like, I'm home for tuck-ins like 5 days a week. I'm not going to come on here and be like, oh, 7 days. Well, COVID, I was home 7 days a week tucking it in. But that's so important, and they grow fast. I mean, I can't believe my daughters are 9 and 7. But the thing that motivates me, and it's probably going to sound crazy, but it's beyond true. As we're building these different satellite offices and I'm getting involved, like when Mike Nelson and myself started up Cyber, or, you know, getting involved with Bill and Leon, who I referred them work for 10 years before I got involved. Yeah. It keeps me young and it keeps me excited to see other people hitting their dreams and, you know, being a catalyst. So, you know, hopefully I'm in a couple eulogies when, you know, I know there's going to be a lot of people in mine that I'm thanking, but so to speak, but, I just like to see people do well, and I think it's, you know, instilling a mindset, right? I don't make people money. I make people work. I make people earn it. Like when people thank me when the business grows or, hey, we hit these numbers, I'm like, I just put my hand out. You still have to put your hand out and shake it. So and I really feel like the next stage of my career is going to be doing more of that. Like, why go out? We have a great sales team. We have people that I trust internally. You know, if I go take a nap for a month, they could run the business fully. So what I want to do is find people like me around the country because, you know, the economy's not great. We all know that. Interest rates are terrible. Getting cash is tough, especially if you're an entrepreneur. So my target is I want to find that 30-year-old technology person that always wanted to start a business. Now they have a kid or two, maybe a spouse, maybe a mortgage, and they can't quit their job and say, hey, I'm going to start an MSP. Not only that, when I got in as a residential repair guy, right? Now a one-man shop's not going to compete with us. Hell, a 50-person shop can't compete with us with all the tools that we have. There's always going to be a market for them, but I'm talking competing. So I could plug people now into our ecosystem where I have proof of concept with 4 offices and let them build a brand, let them build a business, let them be the heavy, be the bat phone, let them take advantage of our marketing and everything else that we have established, right? Imagine for all the automation we do for our clients, our automation department's 10 years old. We got a lot of stuff. And so I'm basically a mix of maybe handing over a franchise, a license,
I was gonna say, sounds like a franchisor coming soon.
Exactly. Without that, though, you know what I mean? Without all this stuff, it's, you know, and a great book, by the way, is E-Myth for anyone who likes to read. That's one of the best books on building a business.
Yeah, great businesses aren't built off of great people. It's great policies that make C people perform at the A level, right?
And exactly. I mean, they used to tease me because it was like, you know, the A students I was the A student, right? So the A students work for the B students and the C students work for the government. Somehow I got a government job. So I don't know how
that worked out.
Now, what's the, it sounds like you kind of gave us the big picture, but is there like, where do you see yourself in 10 more years? Is it more in that consultative role where you're really not running day-to-days? It's just you're jumping on phone calls, making other people's businesses better? Or in 10 years, are you finally going to hang it up and you're like, I'm actually just going to go chill on one of these islands and hang with Gronk and Tom Brady and have some football matches?
I thought you said I was a young man. This is now like a politician.
I think at 53 you could probably retire if you wanted to.
You know, I it's kind of odd. I don't really think 10 years out. Like I'm typically like a 2 to 5 year guy, because in my business, especially with all the technology businesses, it changes so fast. Like if you'd have told me 5 years ago that AI would be a word that you hear and use every day,
all the time,
every
company advertises it.
It's you know what AI is? It's the new cyber, right?
Yeah.
Cybersecurity you heard about every day. AI is the new buzzword till something comes out, you know, after it. But yeah, I'm just really focusing on growth. You know, I'm really focusing on, you know, how do we bring the PCS brand nationwide, right? We have folks probably in 15 states now. With our incident response, we have the pleasure of working globally with a lot of Fortune 5s, Fortune 1s, Fortune 2s, you know, helping companies that got hit with ransomware and other bad things, you know, recover, which is really fun. And, you know, that business didn't exist. That division didn't exist until 4 years ago. So it's really tough to think 10 years from now. But I mean, I'd really hope we're well over 1,000 people and, you know, just have some great people running it. I mean, it's exciting too, because we have a real youth movement. A lot of people at our office in positions, you know, it is the next generation. So, and it's good to see it, you know, people earning it, right?
Absolutely. Now what, I was going to say right there, lost my train of thought with, I had a question.
I'll pick up there.
Yeah.
So how many trucks do you guys got on the road? Where you're kind of doing business? It sounded like from Justin, you know, cause I'm more of an outsider.
Yep.
Sounds from Justin, you're doing like Maryland, PA, Jersey. Are you doing, you know, the whole East Coast? Like, where are you going?
So we're going around the country. So
nationwide.
we actually just picked up a job, managed service contract in Chicago. What I would say is predominantly, we have 4 offices in Jersey, so we cover the entire state. Yep. We have our office in Delaware. We have an office in Boston. We have an office in Florida.
Oh, I see. I didn't know any of that.
And realistically now, though, and here's one of the benefits of COVID.
You'd be anywhere.
No one really cares anymore, because 95% of the work that we do is remote.
Yep.
And realistically, we fly out for the setups and things like that. But
the rest you can do remote.
Yeah. I mean, think about this. For most companies, if they get a new computer, like the place in Chicago, if they unbox it and plug it in and go to one website, we take over from there.
Yeah. I mean, remote in.
Yeah. And literally, we build all the automated stuff. So literally, they come in, they go to this website, they download their special agent. It installs everything that they need.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what started you with like starting to do national stuff? Because I'm guessing you were localized right when you started. And then what did you start getting some jobs over here or over there? And then you're like, I need an office in Boston or.
Yeah.
You know.
So Boston came through YPO contact. I was in a PIF forum, personal investment forum, where a bunch of us just talk about, hey, what's your portfolio look like? We never said, hey, what are you worth? But like, hey, I'm 20% in equities. And, you know, we just tried to help each other be better. So this guy called me up, it's in my group, said, hey, you want to start an office in Boston? I said, yeah, what do you mean? He goes, look, I got this great guy, but we sold one of the companies. I don't need him anymore. And can you have him? I was like, well, yeah, because 1, if he's a technician, he could work just like any of our people. And 2, you know, it would be great to expand our reach. We already had some clients in Boston, so it's great now to have a resource there. And, you know, it's just one of those things. But really, the way that we got into the national support 5 years ago, we weren't getting on planes. It didn't make sense. Once we got into the incident response, which again, I don't even think we know we were getting into incident response. Like we're getting jobs and kind of just finding people, and it's like, ooh, this is going to be real. Like we need to make this a division, get a team, and from there, I mean, we had folks flying out all over the place, and then COVID hit, and what the insurance companies and everything else realized was, we could save a lot of money on travel because these guys proved that they could, you know, work remotely and all that. Yeah. So again, you're saving all that travel time on the plane. You have less downtime for a client, because if I'm flying out to California, it's 6 hours, you know. That's 6 hours that you're waiting.
Yeah, sure.
Now, granted, we have people there, so we deploy local, but.
Now, you were saying, my brain started to work again. We were talking about growth a minute ago. Now, did you invest in self-development? Did you seek out mentorship, or have you just been personally driven and resourceful enough to kind of figure it out on your own?
So I'll say I invested in myself, but not in the traditional sense. Like I wasn't going to like the Tony Robbins conferences or things like that, but I read a lot of books.
Okay.
I mean, I wish I had more time to read with kids and, family and all that. But I mean, I was probably reading some years like 100 books.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I don't read any fiction.
Yeah.
Everything was nonfiction, tax strategy, marketing, guerrilla marketing, story brand, Think and Grow Rich. And so that was really the investment that I made there. And fortunately for me, over time, I acquired a few good mentors. I wasn't like raising my hand saying, hey, I'd love a mentor. But I always give Bob Harriet a lot of credit. From Harriet's over in Medford. I mean, I would see him run a meeting and I was a young guy and I'm like, I want to run a meeting like this. A guy that really helped me a lot, and we still work together, Gene Concordia. He was the executive VP of this plastic company, and I met him at Rowan, and we just been friends ever since. And he's someone I could always know that I could call, and it's like, yo, but he'll tell me the same stuff. Aunt, watch your mouth, just chill. So just having that, and it's cool because he met my dad, and they spent some time together. So it's not just like the transactional piece of me and him. Bob Harriet was in my wedding. You asked about my relationship with my parents. My dad was best man at my wedding.
Wow,
That's awesome.
Which everyone thought I was a weirdo, but I did Google it. And in foreign countries, it's actually, in some foreign countries, it's an insult to your dad if he's not. So
I think it's cool.
It's not an American thing, but so I mean.
So you're close with your family, it sounds like. Yeah.
So let's jump into that actually with the family side. So we've obviously been talking about you're running all over the place, you're hosting things. How are you harmonizing, balancing the family?
The tech tank.
Yeah.
When I get home, I can be home, right?
Yeah.
And two, it's like anything else, right? You have to put family first. If there's any event for our kids, I don't care if it's sporting events, anything, that goes first. I have to move stuff, right? And the second thing is it's just using your time wisely, right? So there's certain nights that, Shelly takes the girls to, let's say, dance. They're not going to get home till 6:30. I know I got a little free time. If I want to meet someone for a happy hour, stay at the office late, do whatever. So it's really just, balancing and planning. And what I'll also do is I'll look ahead. So if I see a week where sometimes like, hey, Shell, I got about 4 nights this week, I'll make it up the following week. Maybe only go out one night, or I'll go in late so I could take the kids to school, things of that nature. But you just gotta, you gotta keep your eye on it, because I think some people get so infatuated with the business that you can harm your family. And look, you got one shot.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And the other thing I like doing in the summer, once the kids get out of school, I take off every other Friday.
Nice.
So then I'll have a nice 3-day weekend every other weekend. We feel like we live there. Disney like 3 times a year, 4 times a year.
Oh, you're one of them.
Yeah.
Disney man.
Yep. So we'll be going there next month. We just went to Florida with the family for Easter. So
Nice.
we do a lot of regular trips too.
Now, do you drop the girls off in the tech tank, or do you actually drive?
I have my wife will not let me take them in the tech tank.
Is that right? You're like, oh, come on, we can market to the school now too. What are we doing?
Nah, regular plain old car.
I always wondered that. I was like, do you actually ever drive? I don't know that I've ever seen you.
I drove here today.
Oh, you drove here? Ah, okay.
The tank's out there?
Nah, no tank out today. And here's why, right?
I gotta see it.
So here's what I try to do, right? So Pete, he does a great job. We've been working together for a little while now, and unless there's a need, right? Great, I have a driver, I have all this, but I'm not going to ruin his day to drive me 10 minutes. Or so if someone needs to see the tech tank or there's a business purpose, I'll ask him, and he knows that. But like, for instance, today, take the day off, Pete.
Yeah.
So we work hard certain days, and summertime he'll benefit. Wintertime I'll benefit a little more, but we really try to keep it fair. And it's great because Pete also does private driving outside of me, like airport runs and things like that.
Okay.
So when I open his schedule, he could double dip, because if he doesn't work 4 days this week, I still pay him the same.
Yeah.
It's just, that's how we do it, because if I'm going to have you be available for me, guess what? That pay better be available for you.
Yeah.
And I want him to make a lot more. I love helping everyone with that, who said earlier with the folks. So if he can make more money and grind, man, God bless.
So is that he's just kind of on call 7 days a week, or is there like a
5 days?
5. Okay.
Yeah. The one thing, whenever I had a drive or anything like that, it was Monday to Friday. If there was weekends, I always gave them first dibs to make some extra cash. But it was never expected, because we work hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with the work hard, play hard mentality, you do a lot of really cool things. So how do you always find yourself like, I've been fortunate enough to be at your house. You have like the coolest memorabilia. Most people have like a picture of the signed thing, but like Ant's in the picture with the person with the signed thing framed. It's So is it just, are you like through connections? Do you just like invest in a lot of those things when you're at different nonprofit things?
So sometimes it's nonprofit investing, but it's weird. It's kind of like business, right? In the region here, once you get in the know, people start asking you things. So I've just got blessed to meet a lot of different people. I mean, one of the companies I have is an NFT company, which obviously that's doing well as I roll my eyes. NFTs are pretty much dead right now, but like anything, they'll come back. But we have Patrick Willis signed to our NFT company, and basically, if you're out west, Patrick Willis is the Brian Dawkins,
beast.
of the East. Yeah, he was a beast. He just got in the Hall of Fame, so hopefully that helps with some of that stuff. But yeah, so I mean, I look back sometimes and I'm just like, man, this is crazy. Like I got an email from this one that the people that I met Brady with, right? For free, nothing. They sent me an email and said, hey, you live near Philly, right? I'm like, yeah. She goes, check your email, smiley face. It's like, you've got the golden ticket to take a picture with Rocky, Sylvester Stallone at the Rocky statue.
That's cool.
So sometimes you just land in it, you know? I got to host Sirius Radio. I did Seriously Sinatra for about 45 minutes. Basically, I sent like $500 in the Why Hunger and a demo tape because I used to have a radio show. So I sent the demo tape and some TV clips.
Yeah.
They picked me. So I got 45 minutes on Sirius, like probably, 2,000 feet from Stern Studio. And I'm just kind of rapping in New York, talking about my family and why I love Sinatra. And
big Sinatra guy, huh?
I am. Yeah. So, and again, it's just putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a movie with Hercules. Like,
that's right.
How does that happen, right?
That's
just crazy stuff.
What's that? Let's hear that story.
That was a wacky one again through some mutual friends. And this one guy said, literally, he's like, oh, I heard you like Sarbo. He's like, I'll get you in a movie. So I said, hey, I got to do something for you. He's like, no. I said, what can I do for you? He's like, well, I'm on this nonprofit. Wrote him a check for $5,000. He wasn't even asking for it.
Yeah.
But now I met a lot of those folks, and there's going to be opportunities to do a movie with Dean Cain coming up soon, and different things like that. So I mean, again, it's just putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Speaking of being chosen, I saw congrats are in order. I know Duran chose you as an honoree for their prom this year.
You're the oldest male prom king.
But it's great to see that, like, all that you do in the community is being recognized. So how did that like come about? How are you involved with Duran?
So we've been partners with Duran for a number of years. I want to say 12 years.
Okay.
And we always try to support the community. I mean, one thing I'm proud of is the amount of money that we give and the amount of checks we write. It's never enough, right? There's always someone and there's always another great cause. So you do have to set a budget. But yeah, there's some organizations that we just have, such a closeness with, and they're one of them. And I was really honored when they reached out to me. I didn't know they were doing it. It wasn't one of those like nominate yourself, or got the call and said, hey, would you be interested? And obviously, anything for those guys. And I think it's going to be a great night. It's coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's literally their first, right?
It's
so
their
you're
first.
the first.
I'm the first
award winner.
First
Sticking
of a
with
lot.
We're trying.
Yeah. That's awesome. So go back real quick to you brought up yet an NFT company.
Yep.
So one, what got you into that? I know it was huge. Personally, I know it was huge. And then I still have like 15 that are now worth nothing, but not even a point to sell them. But what got you into that? What was your thoughts on it? Why you started it? Like, did you see it coming, or?
I like to get involved with trendy things, and if I didn't put some money up, I'd never learn what it is. So I mean, for me, when I first learned how to play craps when I was like 21, I'll never forget. My dad was teaching me. I couldn't. It's a fast game.
Yeah, a lot going on.
So I'm
Especially
like,
when the table's busy.
so I'm asking questions. So the pit boss comes over and looks at me. He's like, hey kid, do you want to know how to play craps? I'm like, yeah. He's like, put your money down. If we pay you, that's good. If we take it, that's bad. And guess what? Put enough money down, you'll learn. And I did that. So I'm an expert at craps. But I lost my train of thought now. What were we saying? I got the craps. I got all excited.
But basically, you're saying invest in things to learn about them.
Hit the craps table after this?
I'm going to the Borgata now.
I was just going to say,
All right,
you're going to
let's hit
AC from here.
You got the itch. But so a buddy of mine had some friends that he was frat brothers with over at Penn, and they had an NFT company. They needed some backers and they needed some business guidance. And I'm like, it wasn't a ton of money to really get involved or to invest. And I thought, hey, this is a great idea. And interestingly enough, again, putting yourself out there, I go to meet Brian Dawkins at a Thusio event, right? So we have this NFT and all that. I never do this in my life. I hard pitched Brian Dawkins in the picture.
Wow.
He liked it.
Yeah.
So he called his agent over. Mark, and I told Mark what was going on and all this, and it turns out, he knows a lot of people. Obviously, he represents like Adrian Peterson and him and all that. And Mark joined the business with us. So Brian Dawkins' agent joined us, and literally, I met some folks who knew Eddie Alvarez, and Eddie got me a meeting with Gary V. I guess we didn't do a good enough job. Gary
started his own.
Yeah, Gary
V friends.
Yeah, no, he already had it. Gary liked the concept, but I also think he saw where the market was going.
Yeah. So
he didn't rip us, which if you listen to Gary's stuff, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it was a polite, hey, you guys are on a good path. Not, for those reasons, I'm out.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there, but yeah, good guys, and it's interesting how they're tying things in. Which I do think you're going to find though is since the NFTs aren't worth value, you're going to start hearing this thing called utility. And basically, as we're rebranding and regrouping, we're actually giving you the merchandise that happens to be attached to an NFT.
Right.
So now you're buying and getting a unique item. Like we're looking at making, for Patrick possibly, if they approve, some Hall of Fame figures. And they're going to be really cool.
And you can only have them if you have the NFT.
Right. Well, when you buy it, you get the NFT.
Right.
And then remember, if you want to check it out, it's Universe 52.
Okay.
So part of the other stuff that we were doing is, maybe his top 5 NFT holders, they'll get to go to a football camp with him. He'll train your kids how to play or go to a playoff game with him.
Yeah.
So we're trying to sell the experience now. So you get this great experience and the NFT.
Yep.
So, okay, this is worth nothing. You can't take away that action figure, that autograph, that picture.
Sure.
And we'll see if it works.
Yeah. That was a big thing when it was huge. I guess, what was that now, a year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was off the chart. Like those monkey guys.
Board 8.
Board 8.
But the big thing that, because I got deep into it, the big thing was a lot of people said the future is they have to have utility.
Yes.
Because the Board 8, it's just a picture. You're not getting anything other than that. And all them ones for the most part crashed. Whereas like I said, I was listening to a lot of videos and stuff. It was like, all right, if you buy tickets to a Taylor Swift thing, you get this NFT with special, there's that utility that comes into play, where when it was huge 2 years ago, it was only looked at as like a stock type thing.
Right. It was an investment tool. Got nothing.
Right. Which that's not what it is. And that's back then people were even saying that, like, forecasting that this is going to happen, it's going to crash, but the ones that have utility are going to continue to
If you're a Brady NFT holder, which I'm not, once a year he holds a football camp.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we got the idea for, Patrick's.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think the utilities are really going to be the wave of the future. And the thing that actually shocked me the most, though, is Bitcoin's coming back roaring.
Crazy.
I thought that was going to drag the NFT market with it.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this run is even the alts didn't move. Like your Litecoin, your
Ethereum.
Ethereum. I'm a big Chainlink guy. I'm all in on that one. And they're moving. I mean, look, Chainlink went from $5 to 15.
Yeah, not like Bitcoin
19,
now.
But it's not moving at that rate.
Yeah, Bitcoin's insane.
I mean, the funny thing is too, since it went to 72,000, like people are all complaining it's only 66,000. I'm like, it's $66,000. That's pretty good.
100%. I mean, a year ago it dropped to what, 20, 15?
It was like 19.
19. Wow. 10 years ago it was 1,000. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's had some crazy growth. Now we're getting a little closer to the end. So Tyler typically has a question.
Ask a question. Yeah. All right, cool. So I ask this to every guest who comes in. So give us a hurdle that you faced in your life, a pivotal moment, in your life that was a hurdle, maybe a mistake that you made or something that you went through that was rough in life. But you really look back to that and say, I learned a ton from that and it really got me to, where I'm at today.
There's so many. Literally with all the business and all, I probably, missing some in my subconscious that I probably want to forget. But I'll tell you the craziest one that I think was a really good accomplishment was getting that building in Moorestown. I swore, because the real estate market wasn't too hot when I sold my other building. Thankfully, I got my cash back at least. And I swore I'd never buy a building.
Yeah.
And let alone this monster, right? 33,000 square feet.
Dude.
And I'm in the conference room and I'm like, we got to move. I'm talking to Tracy and Tracy looks at me and she's like, because we've moved, by the way, as a company between all the offices in 24 years, we moved like 18, 19 times. Moved or expanded.
It's never fun.
No, we're pretty good at it, but don't want to be.
Yeah.
So Tracy looked at me and she goes, I'll do this one more time, but I really don't want to move. Like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I said, what do you think it would cost? Like, moving the signs, moving, blah, 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 blah. She's like, easily well over 6 figures. Like, I got an idea. So I knock on the building manager, not the owner. The owner of the building's awesome. My last building manager, I won't say his name, not too hot. Like the kind of guy that would walk past you and like look up or look. It's just strange.
Yeah, avoid.
So I'll never forget. I go into his office. And he's like, "What's the matter? What's going on? You've never been up here." I'm like, "Brian, I just have a question for you. I just got to ask you a question. Come in." I take my phone out. I put it on the table. He's like, "Why are you recording me?" I'm like, "I'm not. What are you talking about? I'm not recording you." And he's like, "Say you're not recording me." And it's really awkward. I'm like, "I'm not recording you." Like, okay.
You're wired.
Yeah. He's like, "What do you want?" I said, "Listen, I know I'm your biggest tenant and I got a year left on my lease." I said, "I got to buy the building or I'm moving." He goes, "Well, it's not for sale." I said, "Cool. That was it. That's all I needed." I said, "So I'm the nicest person ever. You have 1 year notice." I get to the door. He's like, "Make an offer." I'm like, I don't know anything about commercial real estate, really.
Yeah.
You know, what do you want? So he gave me a number. So then I was actually going down to AC with the crew. I sent him an email from the tech tank and I countered. I offered $100,000 less, but I also offered to honor my lease to let me buy the building in a year. So then, you know, my rent at the time was probably 15 grand a month. So that more than covers
Cash
the
flow a
100.
bit. Yeah,
Plus
yeah,
he
yeah.
cash flows all the other tenants. He knows he has an exit for his owner.
Yep.
And basically him being him writes back, he goes, "Nope, I like my offer. And you have to acquire the building within 60 days. You have a 30-day due diligence period, and you have to put 100 grand down. And if for any reason after due diligence, if you don't get it, he gets the money."
Yeah.
So I call my banker, Pete, over at TD. He's like, "Dude, this is going to be tough." They got it done. But here was the other thing. I come up with $800,000 cash plus everything else. So I had to do a little moving and shaking. I had some other properties. I got to put together. I got it done. And that was one of those things like, holy crap. Like, I had no business buying that building at that time.
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about the pressure of 30 days, you know, and this is
With that on
literally,
the line.
it's literally one of the biggest decisions you can make in your life, buying a big commercial building.
Yeah.
And,
What year was this?
That was 7 years ago.
Okay.
And we were a much smaller company. You know, I bet
Yeah.
you 7 years ago, we might have been 60 people, if that.
Mm.
And now it's obviously turned into
Tripled.
a great purchase. I mean, the fact you guys use it
Quadrupled.
often
Ironic.
too. We've had the cornhole tournaments
Yep.
there. You guys use the solar parking lot.
Yep.
It's like great with the covering. It's
And we actually, I been renewing these 2 tenants on the first floor, and I finally had to make the heartbreaking call to move them out because we needed more
Need the
space. So
space.
we're starting construction again soon.
Oh, nice.
Man,
Love
that's
to hear
awesome.
more expansion.
More expansion.
Well, Ant, this was a lot of fun. We really appreciate you being there. Super insightful. And we'll definitely should probably collaborate again because then something tells me in another year or two, you're going to have way more stories of cool things.
700
going on.
employees.
Yeah.
We'll see. We're hiring pretty
we definitely
fast.
want to
man.
document you on the road to 1,000.
1,000%.
So we'll be collaborating on the golf course, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely there, brother. But everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, make sure like, subscribe, follow, and Anthony's information will be in the show notes. So make sure to follow them in PCS to check out more of his journey because he's always moving and shaking. But as always, thanks for tuning in and have the best day ever.
Best day ever, fam.